presenter on stage, Mr. T. Srinivas Rao Garu, Superintendent Engineer, Irrigation and CAD, Telangana State. He will present on emergency preparedness for failure of dams.
Dignitaries of the dais and friends, very good morning to you all. For the past 3 days, we have been discussing on managing disasters such as natural hazards, which can be geophysical, hydrological, meteorological, biological, technological, and so on. Being the director of the Dam Safety State Organization of Telangana, my concern is about dams. Dams are important part of nation's infrastructure, and we all enjoy the benefits they provide, including flood protection, water supply, hydropower, irrigation, recreation, industrial use, and navigability. Dam failures are particular concern because the failure of a large dam has the potential to cause more death and destruction than the failure of any other man-made structures. Dam failures are comparatively rare, but can cause immense damage and a loss of life when they occur. This is because the destructive power of the flood wave that would be released by the sudden collapse of a dam under international humanitarian law. Dams are considered installations containing dangerous forces due to the massive impact of the possible destruction on the civilian population, livestock, and the environment in the downstream side of the dam. For example, in 1975, the failure of the Bandino Reservoir Dam and other dams in Henan provinces, China, caused more casualties than any other dam failure in the history, killed about 170,000 people. To refer the major dam failures in India, in 1979, the failure of Machu Dam in Gujarat killed 5,000 people, which was due to heavy rain and flooding beyond spillway capacity. Such situations may occur due to several reasons, such as unpredictable floods, earthquakes, landslides, sabotage, and so on. It is therefore necessary to have a thorough and consistent planning for any such eventuality to help save lives and reduce property damage, and putting in place action plans to cope with such an emergency. It is exactly for this reason that Ministry of Environment and Forest has made disaster management a mandatory requirement for obtaining clearance for all the river valley projects. Dams which are more than 15 meters in height are considered to be the large dams. There are more than 40,000 large dams worldwide, and about 4,500 dams are there in India, including the projects which are under construction. Having effective emergency action plan at all significant hazard potential dams reduce the risk of loss of life and property damage from the failure. For the preparation of the emergency action plans, the CWC Central Water Commission has given some guidelines, which includes the notification of the flowcharts of the rivers, and the responsibilities in the events to face, and the emergency preparedness and preventive actions, and next inundation maps and dam break analysis. Based on the emergency action plan, mock drills are to be conducted. Now, in the state of Telangana, we have taken up the project preparation of emergency action plans for all the major and medium large dams. We have to understand that everyone, that is dam owners, engineers, government bodies, leaders, NGOs, has a role to play in creating a future where all dams are safe. We cannot make anything perfectly safe when dealing with unknown events like water, wind, and earthquakes. On this platform, I take the opportunity to urge the Congress to consider the emergency preparedness for dams an vital issue to mitigate the loss of life and property damage from the dam failure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, Mr. Srinivas Rao. I'd like to call upon Mr. A.K. Jha, Executive Director, Disaster Mitigation Center, to present a memento to Mr. Srinivas. So we've had this is the fourth day. We began well, and then we had 3 days of very fruitful discussion, sharing of ideas, sharing of best practices, sharing even grievances. The proof of anything is in the execution, right? So we plan and then we execute. So now at the end of these 4 days, what is it that we have to show to people who are going to benefit from congresses like this? That is what the next session is going to be about. Today's plenary session is about the way forward, and it is titled the Visakhapatnam Declaration, which I can safely presume will be a declaration of what this Congress, the government of Andhra Pradesh, and the DMICS plan to do in the area of disaster management, infrastructure, and control systems here on until we meet again. To chair this session, I'd like to call upon Shri Anil K. Sinha ji, Honorable Vice Chairman of BSDMA, in the rank and status of Cabinet Minister in the Bihar government. I'd like to call upon Professor Sunita Reddy, Professor at the JNU, Shri Balaji Singh Chauhan, Dr. Anand Babu Garu, and Ranjani Mukherjee ji, Consultant Geoclimate. I'd like to call them on stage, please. So this is the team that has put together the Visakhapatnam Declaration.
Good morning from my side. With the permission of the chair, I've been asked to call a few more people to be on the dais to represent this house here. I'm just going to read the names. I hope I do not make mistakes. I would like to call upon the High Commissioner of Mauritius, Jagdishwar ji, please, and Air Commodore B.V. Upadhyay ji, and Air Commodore A.S. Pathania ji. Would you please come up? From the international group, one person who would be here as part of this group is Ri Kil Ung, DPR Korea. And from the NGO community, there will be one national and one local. I'm going to ask you, Lee, if you can be part of the house. Lee McQueen, please. And from the local NGO and children, we have Padmaja and Raju. And from Sri Lanka also, we would like to get Shri K.D. Chitrapala. Are you here, sir? K.D. Chitrapala, please. And I would also like to request Dr. K.M. Soni, please.
Namaste and good morning to all of you. All the distinguished experts and colleagues on the dais and distinguished participants, ladies, gentlemen, students, distinguished participants from various countries who have come all the way to participate in this Second World Congress on Disaster Management being held in the beautiful city of Visakhapatnam in the state of Andhra Pradesh for the last 4 days. And as you know, today is the concluding. As we move towards the concluding session, we'll of course soon have the Minister of Disaster Management. I think for me, though I was here only yesterday and today, but it's been a great exposure, great experience, learning a lot. Yesterday I was in the plenary and then I was also in 2 sessions, one on building back better and the other on risk transfer, risk sharing mechanisms. And we had some brilliant presentations from Bangladesh, from Sri Lanka, young students, experienced professors with lot of experience behind them. They made presentations and it was really wonderful to be part of those sessions and learn those things. In the evening, I had the privileged occasion to be a part of the session which was going on here with all the senior engineers from CPWD, and they talked of their experiences, which is very, very crucial, which is central to this whole business of disaster management, techno-legal regime, the National Building Code, how they get implemented, how they do not get implemented, what are the issues and challenges and all that. So it's been a great, great exercise. I must compliment and congratulate the organizers, especially Dr. S. Anand Babu, his team in DM ICS and Government of Andhra Pradesh, led by its dynamic Chief Minister, Shri Chandrababu Naidu ji. Before we go on to the declaration, let me just tell you that the leadership is extremely crucial, you see, very, very important. In Bihar, where I work as Vice Chairman of Bihar State Disaster Management Authority, I have been working there since later part of 2010, for a little bit more than 5 years. I have had tremendous benefit and blessings and guidance of our Honorable Chief Minister, Shri Nitish Kumar ji. He has just taken over and been sworn in, yesterday for the 3rd term. And I can tell you that even though we are a very young organization, just about 5 years, like toddlers, learning to take steps and move around, find one's way, etc., understand the environment around us. And yet we have been able to do certain things which we can humbly feel at least, satisfied and also maybe proud of, you see. We hold tremendous importance to the fact that public awareness and education is extremely important, is the first step towards mitigation or disaster risk reduction. And we have started some innovative practices like safety weeks, which are perhaps happening for the first time, at least in India and maybe in some of the countries also. But let me also say that we have been trying to learn a lot from our neighbors. Bangladesh, which was the first, I remember way back, I suppose late 90s, around 2000 or so, they came up with a separate ministry on disaster management and food. You see, it was combined. Maybe now it is separate now. And then they came out with SOPs, you see. Nepal they suffered very seriously recently, but they have been working a lot in these areas, and I think these things will go a long way. So we started with weeks like earthquake safety weeks, road safety week, fire safety week, flood and drought safety week, and this year we started with school safety day and school safety fortnight, you see. And the highlight of the school safety is that 73,000 government schools and also 50,000 private schools. In this business of school safety and safety of children, we said we cannot differentiate between government schools and private schools. Therefore, we have launched, our Honorable Chief Minister has launched a program called Mukhyamantri School Suraksha Program, Mukhyamantri School Safety Program. And this takes along all the 73,000 government schools and 50,000 private schools. And this year in July, for the whole fortnight, more than 20 million students, 2 crores students in all these schools, they did during the fortnight mock drills for evacuation from fire, evacuation in the earthquake situation, and first aid. 2-3 things. We have heard of many school safety programs, but most of the school safety programs, they start with institutional arrangements, committees at the higher level, this and that. By the time you reach out to the child, who is the soul of the school, the momentum and the spirit is sort of lost. But we said that no, our program must be child-centered, child-focused. It must begin with the child, you see. People can say that, well, this model is not correct, there are these gaps and these weaknesses. Doesn't matter, you see. I think the idea is to think bold and go ahead. And I have seen our team moved in 17 districts out of 38 during that fortnight. And the kind of feedback, the kind of enthusiasm, the kind of shine which we saw in the children. When I went and said that, okay children, when I clap, then it is an earthquake situation. So let us do what you have to, show what you have to do. And the moment you clap, all of them get into, you see, jhuko, dhako, pakdo, kind of, you bend, you hold, etc. And then after some time observing the earthquake situation, then they move out in a queue, go outside, take roll call so that some fellow student is not left in the room, etc., etc. So many of these initiatives are being taken apart from many other things. The drafting committee, which of course I was requested to contribute to that, and I was only happy and privileged and honored to do that, along with many of we have Professor Sunita Reddy, we have Balaji Singh, we have Ray Kancharla, Dr. Anand Babu. We all sat through late night, practically whole of the night, and we have come out with 2 pages of declaration, which I'll just read. In fact, I'll not read the whole part of it. The team will read, so I'll read the first part, then followed by Professor Sunita Reddy, and followed by our colleague Mr. Balaji Singh Chauhan. And then we'll throw it to open, because we have just drafted it, but it is to be adopted by each and everyone, all the delegates who are either here or in the hall. So therefore, we'd like to have your comments and suggestions to incorporate it, as far as possible on the spot, and then finally adopt it, you see. So friends, with these words, let me begin placing before you the Visakhapatnam Declaration, adopted today on 22nd of November 2015 in the beautiful city of Visakhapatnam during Second World Congress on Disaster Management. The preamble, it reads as, ours is a world that is faced with humanitarian crises of unprecedented magnitude and intensity in the recent decades in the form of natural hazards of disproportionate consequences and impacts, climate change, as well as man-made disasters. In the midst of growing threat of increasing frequency of disasters, especially due to climate change and everyday risks to the marginalized, the weaker sections, who continue to experience intergenerational poverty and inequality, we wish to commit to Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction and Sustainable Development Goals. As you all know, Sendai Framework came out in the city of Sendai in Japan in March this year. Further, we would remain responsive to the upcoming international commitment on climate change and World Humanitarian Summit. At the Second World Congress on Disaster Management, WCDM, held in Visakhapatnam in November 2015, approximately 1,000 disaster management professionals, practitioners, researchers, academicians, defense service personnel, government authorities, NGOs, multilateral organizations, media, private sector, as well as representatives of children and communities, and I would say especially students committed to disaster management came together and dialogued intensely about relevant and related issues. Building on the experience of recent decades, we have resolved, all of us, we have resolved to commit ourselves, communities and institutions, to innovate and create an accountable action plan. In doing so, it is important to identify the risk drivers and address the root causes of risks. WCDM believes in sustaining a deep focus on vulnerable women, youth, children, disabled, and strengthening inclusive and participative approaches. Whereas global processes which have preceded the efforts at the global level, whereas global processes towards building resilience of communities and nations through Yokohama strategy, which took place in 1994, IDNDR through the 1990s, Hyogo Framework for Action in Kobe 2005, and recently Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, which is a 15-year framework, 2015 to 2030, which laid down 4 priorities and 7 targets. The last 2 decades of action has contributed to bring about a change in the perception and mindset, which has been a great achievement. Change in the perception and mindset, mainly at the national levels. In most of the countries which have created an enabling environment, but the same has not percolated to the subnational and especially the local levels. This is the preamble which I have read before you. I will now request my colleague, Dr. Sunita Reddy, Associate Professor, JNU, to kindly continue with the next part. Professor Reddy, please.
Thank you, Sinaji. I would like to continue further. Therefore, keeping its focus on local realities, Second World Congress on Disaster Management affirms its commitment and resolves to do the following in order to achieve Sendai Framework for DRR and mainstream into Sustainable Development Goals. At local level, that we can call as subnational or provincial, district or local, like panchayats in India or upazilla in Bangladesh, etc., as per the local context of each countries. Set up a full-time dedicated independent body of experts. This would be equivalent of State Disaster Management Authority at sub-national, provincial level, aligned national legislation mandate. Invest in strengthening and operationalizing district level regional units, for example, DDMAs in India or provincial in Sri Lanka, and institutionalize accountability mechanisms as obligated under National Disaster Management Act, with strong convergence at local level structures. Generally, communities are the first responders to every disaster. However, we must recognize that they are also the last and sustained responders. Second World Congress on Disaster Management would like to place on record that devolution of approach to the local level and last level of governance and communities, both in rural and urban areas, is the key to an innovation in disaster management that we wish to deliver on. Keeping in view the experiences of India with 73rd and 74th Amendment to the Constitution of India and other similar national and regional experiences regarding devolution of powers to local governance structures and mechanisms, it is important to recognize their critical role in all phases of disaster management, be it preparedness, planning, response, recovery, and mainstreaming DRR into development process and outcomes. Now I would like to call Balaji Garu to come and talk about the rest of the declaration.
I continue. In the newly formed state of Andhra Pradesh, which is hosting the second WCDM, the government is building the new capital city. We desire to see this new capital becoming a model for the rest of the world as a smart, resilient city, which includes the concerns of all stakeholders. New capital should become sister to Kyoto, Tokyo, Singapore, which are not only smart cities but also disaster resilient models. The 21st century city must retain its ancient cultural heritage and history, at the same time becoming disaster and climate resilient. The new culture of prevention and preparedness should be incorporated as an essential component of all development planning and implementation. State disaster management authorities should spearhead and lead this so that it is risk-informed and risk-sensitive. Public awareness campaigns are an important priority of focus in this endeavor. Local initiatives at preserving the knowledge and history of disasters must be encouraged through supporting concepts such as disaster museum, not only as institutions of history and culture, but also as a space for learning by preserving the remaining of disaster impacts as a living memory for future generations. Some of the national points for action. Effective funding mechanisms need to be generated, such as National Disaster Mitigation Fund, to resource implementation of local plans. Build a platform of knowledge management, good practices, innovations at local level. Regional and continental recommendations. Promote effective regional mechanisms for sharing of data which is gender sensitive and age appropriate. Explore appropriate practices, networks at the level of the governments, multilateral organizations which can activate rapid response when needed, that is at the humanitarian, for the humanitarian access. Proactive strategies such as comprehensive school safety can be piloted as a regional cooperation among nations. The global linkages. Undertake cooperative studies among communities and local governance on evidencing climate change, understanding and local commitments. This would be taken as intra as well as international at the international levels. Promote private sector partnerships to strengthen humanitarian commitments. Use of modern and innovative technologies in all their forms and manifestations, though it be space, telecommunication, earth sciences, cyber, geospatial mapping, etc., as drivers for early warning systems applicable for multi-hazard contexts, disaster surveillance, and efficient use of dissemination to vulnerable communities and masses. Coming to the implementation mechanism, WCDM Secretariat, that is DMICS, will help negotiate, advise for subsequent substantial outcomes. Make WCDM as a biennial event, that is once in 2 years. promote and nurture partnership among stakeholders. We as participants of second WCDM pledge to commit ourselves to Visakhapatnam Declaration and resolve to undertake steps needed to realize this action agenda on 22nd number 2015. Thank you.
So thank you, Professor Sunita Reddy and Balaji Singh, for placing together with me the Visakhapatnam declarations. We have some of the distinguished delegates and the speakers on the dais. So what I will do with the permission of the House is to ask them one by one to give their comments or suggestions and recommendations with respect to the declaration. But I will also request each one to be kindly brief, maybe in about, try to place it briefly in a very focused, sharp manner in about a minute or maximum 2 minutes, because we would like to invite practically everyone who is on the dais and then go to the open house also. So may I now begin with Shri Jagadishwar, from Mauritius. Mr. Jagadishwar, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a great day after 3 days workshop on the Second World Congress on disaster management at Visakhapatnam Declaration. I am very happy to be present here and represent my country. Mauritius being the number 13, very dangerous place where you have several cyclones, floods, droughts, and being isolated. Your country is very big, but when we have cyclone, where to go? Everywhere is the Indian Ocean. So that has been not easy for us. And for the last 100 years, we can say we have witnessed several cyclones and so many things. But it is my pleasure to see that very good resolution has been taken concerning the community base, and that I think was lacking before. It is not only the concern of the government, it is not only the concern of the authority, but it is concern of the people also. So the community should be put in the center, and whatever organization will be, it should be integrated in that spirit. And I am proud to see about the community based in local level, and in the newly formed, in this state where this Second World Conference are being held, that you want this new capital to become a model for the rest of the world as a smart, resilient city. I think is very interesting, very important, and where you can include all the concerned stakeholders. And that I am happy to see that also that the new culture of prevention and preparedness are being focused, and having that proposal of the disaster museum also. Very interesting, and that is, I think, the real history where each and every human beings have to prepare for the generation to come, and this will help the maximum precaution that people, organization, countries can take. And I am happy to see that all the developed countries like Japan, China, Japan, Hong Kong, Thailand, where they have suffered most in disasters like cyclones and other calamities, that you have taken all this into consideration and come forward with this pledge to commit ourselves to Visakhapatnam Declaration and resolve to undertake steps needed to realize this action agenda. I will not take too much of your time, but at the same time I want to add, this is a man-made disaster and natural disaster, but after the Second World War, crimes has been committed on the name of Green Revolution, where millions and millions of rupees of pesticides, insecticides have been putting in our vegetables which we are eating. So eating poisonous food where you have cancer, diabetes, hypertension coming, and in a big way. You take the statistics of WHO, it has already taken an epidemic proportion. So it's very dangerous. So we have to take this, because whatever we do is for the health of our people, health of the future generation, and for ourselves. And that should be, and it should be not only for the disaster management we are doing, but at the same time for the health of our population, for the health of our people, that we have to take that biofarming. This is the basic thing, natural biofarming, which we had it 50 years earlier. Only after the Second World War that this monstrous chemicals has come, and we have been tolerating. I think the time has come. Together with this, we have to take this also. It is very human. I think the priority of priorities of humanity is to think about our food for our generation to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Shri Jagdishwar sir. I think you have very rightly highlighted the issue of communities being at the center and the focus of whatever we are going to do in the next 15 years or beyond that, you see. And the related issue of health, of the kind of, agricultural practices, fertilizers, chemicals, etc., which are being used, you see. Thank you, sir, for these very, very valuable points. May I now request Air Commodore Mr. B.B. Upadhyay to kindly come and share his thoughts and recommendations. Commodore Upadhyay, please.
First and foremost, my congratulations to the 3 drafters of the Visakha Declaration for working out an excellent draft. Being armed forces personnel, we have certain issues specific to the armed forces requirement in terms of how to provide relief to the affected people as in when a natural disaster strikes, which is not within our control. I'll also like to reiterate what His Excellency has brought about in terms of what is happening and how we are poisoning our future generation by unchecked pollution of the rivers and waters. I just had a suggestion towards this. How do we empower the masses? How do we educate the masses? Now, community participation has been talked about in this declaration very, very correctly and very, very timely. The medium of films, I think like we are using films, the same cinemas as a platform to go against use of tobacco. I think we should also use the platform of cinemas to educate the masses on the disasters in the area that they are living in, what actions to do, and what all are the responsibilities of people around them, who is responsible to provide them hygienic conditions, etc. Similarly, for a house owner or a person who is interested in purchasing a house, it was brought out by one of the speakers that it is his right to know if he is living in a disaster-prone area, flood affected, earthquake affected, and what are the construction designs that are required to cater for that. So this is one small suggestion and contribution that I'd like to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Air Commodore Upadhyay ji. I think this whole business of using media and all forms of media, be it cinema or I would include even folk media, I think that's very, very important, because communication is crucial to whatever we are doing. And some of these media, we are talking of social media, but I would say folk media is something which goes directly to the hearts of the people. We have seen this, you see. Nukkad Natak, we see street plays or things like that, they're very, very popular, and they're very, very effective and meaningful also. May I now invite Air Commodore A.S. Pathania to kindly share his thoughts and recommendation. Commodore Pathania, please.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Most of the points have been covered. I will just like to reiterate a few of them and maybe emphasize a few points. When we say promote the awareness about relief, more than promoting, just ensure at the state level, at down to the each village level, that we regularly practice during peacetime, so that when the actually disaster struck, we know what is to be done. I have a suggestion, sir. Like you said, media, but how about introducing a chapter in, say, class 5 books, in social studies, you have a disaster relief chapter, so that at student at the school level, at the primary level, he is aware that something like this is there. Similarly, building of infrastructure specifically for disaster relief, which can be used for other places. I'll give you an example. Recently, Uttarakhand government has prepared a massive helipad at Kedarnath after the disaster. It's which can take on the world's biggest helicopter Mi-26 over there. But it is actually a multi-purpose ground over there, and it can be utilized for many things. Similarly, the states, like the point I mentioned yesterday, on the roads, you can identify the places after a gap of 10 to 15 kilometers where helipads can be constructed.
Esteemed delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is our pleasure to participate in